Well, I'm back, sort of, from 3 weeks of travel and loving, sharing, listening, caring for our staff at three of our four open door libraries. We left on May 20th and we got back in the wee hours of the night on June the 8th. And we're still, Debbie and I are both still pretty profoundly jet lagged, but that's just going to happen. When you cross 9 time zones in one day, you're going to get jet lagged. There's just no getting around it. So, during that period of time, I just, I suppose I probably could have messed things, or not messed things, but moved things around and made time and means to do the soul care thing. But I was there, we were there for the singular purpose of giving care. We didn't go as tourists or sightseers, although we did see some, always when we go, we see wonderful things, but giving care, loving on, listening to, working with our open door library staff is the point. We flew out of here on the 20th, got a great non-stop from here to Amsterdam, a 12-and-a-half-hour flight, which to me, I would rather do that, not have to change planes and all of that stuff. And from Amsterdam on into Berlin, where we stayed all night. And then early that next morning, we flew out for Amman, Jordan, where we call it our fourth library because it was established fourth in the series of 5 libraries now. Anyway, stopped in Istanbul. The last time we flew through Istanbul, I thought, I don't really, I hope we can figure out how to not stop here again. Well, that was in the old Istanbul airport, and the new airport is actually quite wonderful. And from Istanbul on into Amman, Jordan, where we spent 5 days with our wonderful friends who direct the library there, James and Momi, and was a good time for us to connect with both of them and observe what was the daily routine and daily life of the library and of these 2 amazing, wonderful servants. And then from there, this was maybe the hardest travel aspect for us. We left Amman, Jordan at 2 in the morning to fly back in the return route through Istanbul into Berlin. We stayed in the guest house at the library in Amman. To get to the airport, we left at 11 at night, flew out at 2 in the morning, got into Berlin at about 9:30 in the morning. We had a lengthy layover in Istanbul. By the time we got to Berlin, we were pretty wiped out, but it was only 9:30. And guess what? Hotels don't generally check people in at 9:30 in the morning. And we had a very nice hotel arranged who took compassion on us and got us into a room that was great. That afternoon, two of our dear friends from Highland Park Christian Church, Jan and Mike Pride, met us there. They decided they wanted to celebrate their 40th wedding anniversary in a what I think was an amazing and wonderful way. They spent the week with us in Berlin. Now, Mike had been to Berlin many times, and Jan at least once. Mike is a retired high school German teacher, and he had been on teacher exchanges, he had been on student trips. In those 29 years of teaching, he had done and been to Germany lots of times. And so he knew basically more about Berlin than we do. And it was great to catch up with them. We've known them since before they married in Tulsa. They were a part and still are a very significant part of the Highland Park Christian Church. In fact, Mike is our champion for our work through their missions committee. So as an elder, and I'm just so grateful for all of that. It was great hanging out with them. They got to see our library in Berlin, Connections, and meet the directors there, Larry and Terry Lewis. It was just fun, plain old fun, and a blessing to all of us. And then, when our time in Berlin was over, they flew on to Paris, where they spent another week. And looking at their feeds from Facebook, they did pretty much everything there is to do in Paris in that week. It was a great trip. I'm so glad that we got to have them as part of our experience in Berlin with Larry and Terry. And on the last evening that we were there, we all three of us, our couples, Mike and Jan, Larry and Terry, and Debbie and I celebrated our wedding anniversaries. And with a wonderful dinner at a Croatian restaurant. That the food was fabulous, as well as the service. And the company was beyond compare. Then the next day we got on a train and we took the basically 4 hours and I don't know, 10, 15 minutes train ride from Berlin to Prague, and spent the next 5 days with Jim and Lori Barnes, the directors of our library in Prague, the Crossroads Center. And there were two other staff people. One, a volunteer staff person from here in the States. Her name is Carrie, and she had decided to give a year of her life to being at the library. And one of the big things that she can do, she has background in teaching children. She also has background in teaching English as a second language. Two big things that, excuse me, are needs that the library meets. And then Kristen, who is she's a project manager, but when I say that, it doesn't give a good enough idea of what her skills are. She is a terrifically skilled project manager, and pardon me, till she joined New International, which is our umbrella sending agency. She was in the corporate world and she was managing $3-4 million projects, construction projects. Now she lends those services to open door libraries and others within the New International world for their construction needs. The library in Prague is taking on, and in the final stages of a $350,000 construction project, which is a reconstruction and renovation of space in a 100-year-old building that's gonna be already is a fantastic place for the work of the library. And when I say library, I know this is really all about ODL today. I'll get back to Psalm 27 tomorrow, which I realized, hey, I'm wearing the same shirt as I was wearing the last day I did anything on Psalm 27. But anyway, the renovation is amazing. We were there before the renovation began, and it was an old building that had been the area that is now in the final stages of renovation, what had been sitting empty for a couple of years, and I could see, well, there's a lot of potential, but oh my, walls had to be torn down. Oh, by the way, if you know very much about Eastern European construction from buildings that are 100 years old, there's a lot of concrete and bricks. There really are, in those buildings, there are no walls that are easy to knock down and pull out of the way. And 2 or 3 of those walls had to be knocked down and pulled out of the way. Anyway, Kristen is doing an awesome job of helping Jim and Lori work through the stages of renovation and development. And she's been there for 1.5 years. The project won't be done until the fall. She's staying until then. Our target date for celebrating with a grand opening is September 16th. And God willing, Debbie and I will be there for that, to celebrate what God has done. The perseverance and patience and just the hard work that has gone into this, which will make the Crossroads Center an amazing and wonderfully attractive place, including a cafe, as well as children's library, teens library, and the adult library with meeting spaces and an entire basement that was totally renovated and is amazing. I keep using that word, but I don't know a better word, where more than 100 people can be seated for whatever. So anyway, then we took the train back up to Berlin, stayed all night, and flew back from Berlin to Amsterdam. Just enough time to get through passport control and find our plane, get back on, and fly the 9.5 hours from Amsterdam to Salt Lake City. Long layover there, and then at about 11:30 that night, we climbed on the last plane, flew into Las Vegas, and got home here at about a little after 1 in the morning. We were ready to be home, but so grateful for the good things that God did with us and in us in those 3 weeks. And if you prayed for us, I want to say how grateful we are for your prayers. That's why those weeks went great. Okay, next time, we'll look into the songs on Soul Care with Steve.